All right. Welcome back. Welcome back. We have our first guest lined up and set to go. So we are going to get right into it. I'm excited about this first gentleman that we're bringing to the stage because this man, I've known him for a while. He's been famous ever since I known him, but I've known him for a while. Uh, he is from. He's been on the radio over 2 decades now. So I'm going to bring him on right now, Mr. Marc Clarke from WHUR 96.3 FM in DC. He's the co-host of the Afternoons with Allison and Mark, his wife, Allison Seymour, Hampton Pirates. It's going to be a big Hampton theme today, by the way, folks. So shout out to that. But Mark put me on the 92Q when he was in Baltimore. Him, Troy Johnson, Sanjay. They had me on the radio then, and he's been a cool brother ever since. So I wanted to bring him on today because Mark is going to share some information about telling your story. I mean, he's been a storyteller. He's about doing interviews and radio. He's heard enough stories told. So we're going to start the day off with talking about resetting your story. Because we talked about your story, our lives are our story. So we're going to talk about that today. So I want to welcome you, Mark, to Reset 2021. Thank you for joining us today.
It's a blessing to be here, Ryan. And what you started off with, man, you're so right. Allison asked me, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to talk about? And at first, Ryan, I had my whole life story ready to go. Y'all was getting ready to get that whole life story. I was born a poor black child in Springfield. Then I was like, I looked at it and I was like, man, ain't nobody trying to hear all that. What people want is to cut to the chase. And what you said, Ryan, to start the show was so perfect, though. You're absolutely right. This situation in 2020 has caused us to, in a sense, look at our lives. We've slowed down enough to finally look at our lives. And I think that's a huge blessing because, as you mentioned, you get in that rat race, you do stuff that you have to do every day, and you forget this is your life.
Right.
Your life is the only one you got. You're the only one who can tell your story. I had over the last few years, not to be morbid, I had to identify, my mother and then my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, before we put them to rest, I had to identify the body. And as they sat there on the cold slab, I thought about the amazing lives that they led, and their lives allowed me to be here and be who I am, allowed my wife, who's amazing, to be who she is. But like we talked about, Ryan, a lot of times we don't take time to look at our story until it's over.
Right.
And then we come and we share. And so I was thinking as you were talking, Ryan, like I'm 54 years old, and when we talk about stories and things that have happened in our lifetime, they're really adding up. I was there, I went to the Million Man March, and I remember being in that moment and thinking, how will history look at this? We most of us remember 9/11. I actually was on the radio in 92Q in Baltimore when it happened before we went off, and we stayed on the air from the morning until 6 p.m. in the evening as we were basically trying to soothe our city, trying to make sense of everything, and try to make it make sense to us. And then all of us are going through COVID-19, right? 2020. The history books will write this. And what happens, though, Ryan, is we get so busy, we could either be at the event or live the event, but we never stop and think about the event. And so I want everybody who's watching this today, start to think about your life. Put your story together. Like I said, I wrote my long form story I was going to give you about my life and how I got to do radio, but I'm going to save you from that. But I mean, just having those notes make you then analyze, they make you analyze your life. I'm turning this phone off. So here's the thing, couple takeaways now. So my goal, the blessing I had that I think a lot of people don't have is that at an early age, I knew what I wanted to do, and that was broadcasting. So I wrote it down here. From an early age, being from Springfield, Illinois, I wanted to be a professional announcer, and I wanted to have a family like the Cosby Show. I knew this as a very young person, and knowing that, I now see was such a huge blessing because I saw my mother who worked for Social Security go through hell at work. So I made the decision. I said, I'm not going to work a job that I don't love. I'm only going to work what I love, right? And so and the same thing with when I was dating, when I started dating people. My mother said something very important. She said, don't have sex with nobody that you wouldn't want to marry.
Wow.
which sounds, I know it sounds like crazy, right? But what I realized is in my professional life and as I pursued relationships, I really was on a very focused path. You know, I knew I wanted to do this radio thing. And the sisters I dealt with, I didn't deal with a whole bunch, but the ones I did were great. You know, so I did not bring drama into my life. I did not bring drama into my story. And that allowed me to do something that, the statistics say what? Less than 7% of Americans actually follow the path that they want or live the life that they want to live. And the sad part is that we all can live the life we want to live, but the sad part is we get distracted. And what we don't do is we don't think about our story. We don't think about the story. You got to write the story to have a story.
Absolutely.
Some of us let life write the story for us as opposed to you writing life story, and again, and it sounds very basic and it sounds very pie in the sky, but I'm just telling you as someone who has lived this, that it's not only possible, this is the key to success. All the books that blew up, The Secret, The Laws of Attraction, all these things really is talking about if you plot a course, the universe will get out of the way. You just got to go and you just got to go for it, So so what I realized though, because I from an early age knew what I wanted, when I hit my 40s and I met you, Ryan, you remember I was host of Marc Clarke and the Big Fat Morning Show in Baltimore, #1 rated show. I was making over $300,000 plus. And then in 2008, I got snatched. Right? And so what happened was, okay, Mr. Radio, you want to do this your whole life? What are you going to do now? What I forgot about when we talk about writing your story, Ryan, is you need to update that story.
Write some new chapters.
You gotta write some new chapters, because I was rolling with my story since I was like 14 years old.
Right.
And then at 40, I got clipped. So now what am I gonna do? I had the wife and family, I had the career, but now that $300,000 in that career are gone. Wow. And so a hard lesson that I've learned is that you always have to, reset. You always have to, revamp your story. So if you've never written a story, or haven't done it at all, my assignment for you, if you're watching this, is you do that. Start. What is it that you want? What's your story? What are the goals you want in the next 5 years? What do you want to achieve, as you head a decade from now? If you have never done it, start today. Build your story today. If you have done it, and this damn COVID and the uprising and the 2020 has shaken your whole world apart, now you got to reset. Now you got to reset in this new world. You made a great point, Ryan. Not only if you have businesses, bringing people back is a question. Why? And then number two is, right, if I have a brick and mortar, is there any reason for me to keep this brick and mortar? Should I shift and do something different? Right. These are questions that they're not going to answer themselves. You have to write that story. Okay. And, and so the good news is you can always write the story. The good news is, I remember, Ryan, when I was working in radio over the years, people used to always say, "Hey, Mark, don't you want to be syndicated?" And I was like, I hadn't thought about it. "Hey, Mark, don't you want to own a radio station?" I hadn't really thought about it. Wow. But then when I lost my gig in 2008, I thought,
all of a sudden, all the ideas came flowing.
Yeah, because in your mind you're like, why in the hell did I never think about that? That was like, those are very basic questions. But again, well, was it because I was fat and happy? Was I comfortable? Did I feel like I had arrived? Maybe so. But the best part is, as you witnessed it, Ryan, you saw me fall off the map, and you saw me try to reinvent this and do that, and got a job in New York, and so again, writing your story, like basically at the end of the day, you can write your story, but life's also going to take you on its journey also. Yeah. And don't let that disturb you. Don't let that don't let that take you out of your game. You may have your story written and have it planned out, but something can happen and knock you off that. But I'm still telling you, it's still worth the time and the goals you set for yourself. Because let's think about it. Success is really just fulfilling the goals you set for yourself. If you haven't set goals or you don't have a story, then how can you evaluate your success or not? And only you can evaluate what success is in your life. Nobody else can look at you and say, "Oh, you're successful." No, only you really have that. So again, in closing, write your story. If you've never written it, start writing it today. Again, and number two, if you have written your story, revamp that story every 5 or 10 years. Start looking down the line. What do you want your retirement to look like? What do you want your future to look like? What do you want that? And get specific. What do you want that bank account to look like specifically? What do you want your relationships to look like? I never had drama in my relate. My wife always teases me because she says, "Oh, you ain't never been hurt. You ain't never been this and that." Well, I was very serious when I brought somebody into my world. Period.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, you ain't gonna just come in my world and disrupt it. I love myself, so why would I bring somebody in who doesn't also love me?
Right.
And so that with that philosophy, I didn't get hurt because I didn't let you in. But also the reality is too, you can't control somebody else. If somebody don't love you no more, let them go.
Let them go. Let them go.
We fight. That's a part. We talk about relationships and even jobs. When you see those signs, if you're getting played, it's time to just drop what's going on. Don't lie to yourself. That's the worst thing you could do. So again, just some quick wrap ups for your story. Don't waste time. Focus on what's important. It's the success is fulfilling the goals that you set for yourself, and only you can see the vision. I remember when I started off in radio, my aunt worked at the post office, and the first 5 years of my career, every time I would check in with her, she said, "Baby, they're hiring at the post office." Yeah, that little radio thing is good, but they're hiring at the post office. Because in her mind, she was helping me. She wanted me to have a safe job, a secure job, someplace, until I started making six figures, then she quit saying it. Right. But again, a lot of times, the people that love you the most, they can't see your vision. They can't understand your story. Right. So that's it for me, my brother. Thank you so much for having me on the reset. Let's do this, 2020.
I got some questions. Man, you can't just go and drop all that knowledge, man, because and think you're gonna go away. So I got some questions because you touched on one part when you talked about the transition after you were let go from 92Q, by the way, which was very unceremonious. I know that's how they do it in radio, but we were all still upset about how I just turned on the radio one day and y'all were gone. So, but that's not what we had to talk about. But after that, you talk about how you were doing you still had to find your way, and you talk about how hard it was from you to actually live it. But I talked earlier about the seed and how you plant your seed and some birds will pick up your seeds. Whereas while you were, trust me, when I was watching you go to New York, I was like, wait a minute, if Mark can go to New York and live here with a wife, I can. I was looking for gigs in New York, Mark. So because I was like at the same time, well, what if I want to get in media? I'm like, all right, Mark is going there Monday through Thursdays or whatever days it was you were doing. I'm like, maybe I can do that too. So understand that I know you didn't put any money in your pocket because I was following you, but understand we talked about the seeds and other people being blessed by your action, your activity. So even when you're going through, even when you're writing your story, while you're writing your story, someone else is reading your story too. So that was very, I'm gonna write that down. That was good. So
the bar right there, buddy. Nice bar.
Bars. So that was so important because I wish I knew when I was in college what I really wanted to do, and media is what I really wanted to do because I would have taken that track. So when I found out that was my real passion, and started a media company, you were one of the people who I always follow your path and see what you're doing and how you do it, and always looked up to you, even though we may talk 2-3 times, but so I'm one of those birds picking up your seeds along the way. But then something else you touched on that you said was so important and so powerful, man, was that only you can define your success based on your goals. And that's one of the biggest things about reset. And what I want to make sure that we get across to people is that, we, especially when you're doing something that's non-traditional, not a traditional type of post office job, is that, a lot of people will judge you by what they see as normal. I talked about it earlier about normal. And so certain things are abnormal. We see people doing it, we'll follow them, we'll watch them, we'll listen to the shows, we'll watch them on TV, we'll watch them in the movies, but never think that that's real. you know, like those people had to say no to normal and really go out there and pursue those things and become successful. So I don't want that to go over people's heads, because you know you dropping some bars as well, Mark. So definitely love that. I want to ask you now though, because now that you are on the radio, you and Allison are doing your thing with WHUR. And so first, let's talk about how it is working with your wife on air. But now that you all are quarantined, like you all are doing the show from home, are you back in the studio yet, or are you home? So like, you don't get away at all.
No,
So
right.
talk to
Yeah,
us.
yeah. So Allison's doing the TV show from home, and we're also doing the radio show from home.
Wow.
And so we are definitely with each other all the time. And again, man, I think you know, we've been married 20 years plus. The thing I would pass on to people, you know, it's hard to give marriage advice, because at the end of the day, you just got to marry the right person for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think for us, you know, I think love, you got to have love, but you also have to have like. If you like each other, we like each other.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
And now we have the typical male, female, husband, wife issues. And it's funny because you can't escape it now. We're with each other 24/7. But at the end of the day, there's the humor and the fact that we like each other that plays. That's a big factor, you know. And the thing, man, I tell you, Ryan, one thing I think in the Black community, not to shift it into marriage, but something we got to get over, because I think we talk about this a lot, and it comes from the Black church, is that whole man of the house or the leader of the house or the whatever, because it kind of, first of all, it's not real. I mean, America has it set up where the Black man more than likely is not going to be the financial leader of the house. It just is set up that way, you know?
It is. Yeah.
And if you're in corporate America, because it's almost like what I noticed, Ryan, is the older I get, like when I was making 300,000 plus at 40, let's say 45, right? What I notice is it's hard for a brother in his 50s to make 300,000 plus in a corporate setting, right?
Right.
And if he is, he's one of the lower paid dudes, because usually by that time, the white boys that you came in the corp company with are now your boss.
Yeah.
And so now your ego takes a blow because you're making less than him. Y'all came out of school at the same time. He's your boss. You're putting up with a whole bunch of stuff, but you can't leave because you got the finance, you got the package, you got the insurance, you got a great salary, and you're stuck, right?
Right.
So, or in the case of what happened to me, you just get chopped. You know, you get chopped. So, but a Black woman, on the other hand, it's just different. It's just different. You know, like a lot of the stuff that my wife has gone through at work, I would have got fired because I would have said F you. I would have my ego, you know, Black women know how to put their ego aside, baby, and hold on to that check. Men, we don't. When you say something to me, you're saying something to me.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know.
I know my wife is watching, and she know we're the same way. Like she'll take a lot more, you know, and I understand, you know, like you say, I can see why, but I'm that person. And I think once you have a taste of doing something on your own too, it's kind of like your fuse is real short when it comes to somebody else kind of tell you, you know, you're supposed to be here at 9, it's 9:05, why are you late? I'm like, what? So that kind of stuff is like, oh, wait a minute, that's a strike, hold on. So not saying it's right or wrong, but I understand what you're saying is true. Like it is, and that dynamic is so important that we do work through that, because, like, you know, it is set up from both sides. The man has to understand, the Black man, you know, hey, the way it's set up, you may not be the breadwinner, you know, more likely than not. And then on the wife side, you know, it's like, if you are the breadwinner, then you understand that, you know, the man has an ego still, you know. So how do you both have to learn how to finesse those things and make sure that you all are a partnership, and that's what's most important.
And Ryan, another piece I wanted to say, and again, this is about relationships that I think is so crucial when we talk about women and men. And this isn't just race. Allison, my wife's love for her father, her love and belief in her father allowed her to love and believe in me that same way.
Wow.
And I think, Ryan, that's the challenge, because most of us, including myself, didn't have a father at home. So most people, when the shit hits the fan, their experience is either dad popped out, or it was beginning of the end of of their comfort life. You know,
Right,
like
right.
that's the moment. Like when dad left or when some shit happened. Whereas when it happened, when I lost that $300,000 job, my wife, you know, my wife was like, it's gonna be okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna come back. We're gonna do this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
that's something that a lot of people just don't have. And that's a blessing. But then that goes back to the parents. She saw
Right.
that with her parents. And so these things, you know, and so a lot of times I think we think it's a black thing. No, it's a relationship thing. A
Absolutely.
lot of people, you
Absolutely.
know, when hard times come, man, that's the hardest thing for marriages, you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and so again, so that's that piece, you know. And then lastly, I think we have to, um, you know, relationships aren't just money either. That's the other part in life that I'm learning, Ryan. You know, when you lose a $300,000, so it happened like the New York thing. You know, I lost my $300,000 a year job. Now, ain't no the funny part, ain't no $75,000 jobs laying around either.
Right.
So, so in that 6 years where I was just kind of like doing this to do that, nothing was coming close to 300,000.
Right.
Nothing was coming close to six figures, right? So then that's what with New York. What happened was I get a call, and so that was 100,000. And so the family, you know, we had to say, well, look. But the blessing was that 6 years was me being Mr. Mom. That was me
Mm-hmm.
taking care of the in-laws. That was me taking the girls to school. So I was building up. I was serving my family. So when this opportunity came, and I was going to commute, we had such a tight relationship that it was all good. You know, when I lost my gig, I didn't spend years. You know what happens when cats lose a gig, then they start to kind of veer. They kind of lose control,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
they get depressed, and they start to compare what they used to be. All that stuff can tear everything down. So the blessing was boom. It was that's what made it strong was I had to step up in other ways. And that's the other thing is there's a whole bunch of ways to step up in life. And the same thing with your career. If you are frustrated because you're not making a certain amount of money and you're going through hell, well, like you said, Ryan, maybe you need to build your own machine and go through hell, but at least it's your own hell, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
And or put it in perspective. Yeah, I work at the post office, but on the side, I have my business. And I'm going to build that business up. And when I finally get to the point where my business is making what I'm making at the post office, I'll let it go or something like that. Or I'll
Right.
use my job. Like, oh, that's what I had one point I wanted to say. So one of my friends, I was looking at it, Ryan. So I chose, like you said, I chose entertainment. And so in entertainment, I made six figures and da over the years and lost it and whatever, right? I have a friend, Springfield, I'm from Springfield, Illinois, which is the state capital.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at my friend's Facebook page. My friend graduated from high school and got a state job, right? So I'm looking at his page, and sure, I've covered the Olympics and been to the Soul Train Music Awards and been to Dubai and been to Qatar and whatever. That's great. Met Maxwell, whatever. But I'm looking at his page, and he is number one, retired. He's
Wow.
got a boat.
Wow.
He's got a Harley. He got his house paid for. He paid for his kids. His kids went to state colleges and school. So as he's 54 years old, everything's paid for, and he's got all his toys. You
Right.
know,
Right.
I'm still grinding. I'm gonna
Right.
be grinding. I'm gonna be grinding on out. You know, so it's all like it's all relative. You know.
Yeah, yeah, that's how I feel now, man. Watching all my military friends I graduated from high school with, did their 20 years. One of my best friends from high school, man. Shout out, I don't want to say his name on the thing, but he know who he is. Shout out to him, man. 20-year Marines, just retired, and he's telling me about his package he got from retirement, about six figures from that. Then got another job making six figures. So here he is getting two six-figure incomes, and I'm like, yeah, I'm about to go put on this conference right quick, cause. So yeah, man, I feel you on that. So, but it is about that's the thing that's the trade off. But you also got to look at both of us followed our passions though. That's the thing is that you followed your passion.
Right.
So where you may not have those toys that would be fun to have right now, you still have joy and fulfillment in your life, and that is that's valuable as well. Yep. So
Oh yeah, sitting around and talking on a microphone.
yeah, man. I mean, every day is different. You get to meet different people, and that's my thing. I like to tell stories. I like to hear. I like to ask questions and learn about people. And so that's what I love it. I mean, doing like that, doing what we do, and I mean, we're on different levels, obviously, but doing what we do is fun, and it's a good. I like to get platforms and just talk to people. I mean, you're working at the post office, and then I'm calling up Marc Clarke, talking to him, and having a conversation like we having right now.
And wait a minute, Ryan, what you said now, don't get it twisted, brother. You are more powerful than I am right now. Like, so I spent all those years in commercial radio, right? And if you notice, very few commercial communicators have millions of followers, you know? And what I realized why it's because we know how to say it, but the question is, what are we saying? And I think a lot of professionals, when it comes to the podcasting and this and that, if you notice, they ain't really killing the game. Most of the people who are successful in that field never were on commercial radio. And like what you just did, you whipped up a damn conference. You whipped up a conference in a matter of weeks. Cats like me were spoiled because, we had our promotion department do it. We had our marketing department do it. We weren't willing to do what you're willing to do to make this happen. Therefore, when you do this next year and you make, $100,000, from it, and then the next year gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you own it. So you know how to build it and own it and grow it versus, in a sense, I've been hamstrung by almost like the lush life of being in commercial media. And when companies are hiring people now, they'll hire you before they hire me because you already have followers and you already have it. You basically, it's just a plug and play. You're already doing it. Wow. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, for those who are watching and listening and have a podcaster is more powerful than a radio personality nowadays because it's just a matter of time before radio's either converts all the way to. So that's the thing. But look at radio. If you're a radio station and you don't have high ratings, why wouldn't you pick a podcaster that has a 500,000 followers and put them on your station?
Right.
But they don't think that way though.
That's we talk about that normal. We talk about the normal, and that's what Reset is all about. Is that
exactly.
It was about maybe 15 years ago. I talked to Randy Dennis. You remember Randy Dennis, big time, Baltimore icon in the radio. And he said then he was like, radio is going to internet. At that time he was talking about how the cars were starting to get the Wi-Fi in them, and Spotify wasn't around yet, but I forgot what the online radio was back then. But that's when you saw all the radio stations start to transition to the internet part of it, and that's, so you see it happening slowly but surely. But like you said, you still have those people in power and who don't want to transition. Maybe they're stuck holding on to them. Those executives are afraid to change too because they know that they they're making that big money for themselves and they don't want to take those risks. So Reset is in so many different areas. Why it's so important, why we don't want to go back to normal, and why we want to make sure that we can start to exploit some things. Man, you just sold into my life right there. Giving me a different perspective on how I even.
Oh yeah.
Things. So man, appreciate
you rolling,
that.
Man. You're valuable. You know how to use. Just think, man. You know how to do mailing lists. You know how to use networks. You know how to this process right here. You could sell this to a radio station. Say, hey, look, let me. This is the future. Let me help you do Reset 2020. And I'll be your consultant and give me a fee.
There it is. Write that one down.
And then you also do it with the podcasters. You get the podcasters to say, I'm doing this conference. You got blank amount of followers. Give me access to your. All I ask is you give me access to your list, and then you just grow your list and keep it going. There you go, man. I'm giving them free now.
Free. Well, listen, man, you ain't going nowhere. You and I are going to be partnering as we go forward. So one way or another, we're going to be working together.
Oh, you know that, son.
So So absolutely. So Marc, I want to thank you for your time. I want to give you the last word. You can give out how can people contact you or follow you on social media, whatever. And thank you again for joining us.
Thanks so much, Ryan, for having me in Reset 2020. You can go to Marc Clarke Media, MarcClarke media.com. and schedule an appointment if you want me to consult for storytelling, or you want to book me as a keynote, or you just want to rap. And I'm, on social media is MarcClarke. All right. Thanks so much, man, and continued success, Ryan. I love you, man. I'm proud of you, dog.
I appreciate that, Marc. Thank you.